Welcome everyone. Today we are looking at IoT system management. In simple terms, how do we control thousands of smart devices without losing our minds? We do it using two partners, NETCONF and YANG. Think of NETCONF as a messenger and YANG as the language they speak. The next slide is the need for management. Why can't we just use a simple app for every device? The first point is automating configuration, which is if you have 100 greenhouses, you don't want to set the temperature manually on each one. You want a script to do it for you, right? The next point is monitoring data. You need to know right now if a sensor is broken or if a plant is too dry. The next point is improved reliability. If a setting change fails halfway through, the system should be smart enough to fix itself so the plants don't die. The next point is system-wide control. You won't be able to say all greenhouses lights off with one single command, right? So in simple terms, the need for management, which is IoT management, why we need is we don't need to give command for each devices. We need a single command to operate each device in a single command, right? So that is why we are needing for an IoT management. The next slide is SNMP. This is the very old way of managing IoT devices. For years, we used SNMP. Imagine the network management station is the manager at a desk. The managed device is the greenhouse. Inside the greenhouse, there is an SNMP agent, who is a worker, and a MIB, a giant filing cabinet full of papers. Okay. To check the temperature, the worker has to go to the cabinet, find the right paper, and read it back to the manager. This is how the network management station is working. Let's look closer at our SNMP greenhouse. This is how network management worked for decades. To understand it, we need to meet the three main characters in this story. The first one is manager. You guys just listen to the story I have been telling. This is for your basic understanding of what is SNMP. Okay, so just listen carefully. The first point is, which is the first character, is the manager. The network management station, NMS, is like a boss sitting in the central office miles away from the greenhouse. The boss never actually touches the plants. Instead, they send a messenger which is with a sticky note that says get temperature or set fan speed. The boss is stateless, meaning they don't keep a logbook of what they asked 5 minutes ago. They just send a fresh request every time, which is the messenger don't have a history. They don't store their history. They will generate a new request again, which is a fresh. It also named as stateless. Okay. So the next character is the worker, SNMP agent. Inside the greenhouse, we have the SNMP agent. Think of this agent as a very literal-minded worker. They don't make decisions. They only do exactly what the boss note says. Go to the cabinet, get the info, and send it back. This worker uses UDP, which is like a walkie-talkie with a broken receive button. They shout the answer back to the boss, but they don't wait to hear, I got it. If the signal drops, the info is just lost in the wind. I hope you understand this concept. The next character is the filing cabinet, which is the MIB, Management Information Base. Imagine a giant dusty filing cabinet in the corner of the greenhouse. Inside the greenhouse, there can be 2 points. The first one is the folders. Every single thing in the greenhouse has a specific folder name. We call this as OIDs, which is normal IDs, okay? There is a folder for front door status, a folder for soil moisture, and so on. The next one is the problem. Most of these folders are logged, which are read-only folders. The worker can tell the boss the temperature is 30 degrees Celsius. But if the boss sends a note saying change the temperature to 20 degrees Celsius, the worker looks at the cabinet and says, I don't have a key to change that folder. This is why SNMP was great for monitoring but terrible for configuring. I hope you understand. Could you get the meaning of this entire story? So SNMP is basically working on what the boss says. They don't have any other rights to change or modify the things. Okay. So why this became a messy greenhouse? Because this system was so simple. It started to get messy as greenhouses got bigger. The state versus confusion. There are two problems. The state versus config. If the boss sees the number 25 in a folder, they don't know if the temperature the greenhouse is at, or the temperature the greenhouse is supposed to be at. Okay, so the boss doesn't know what that 25 number on the folder means. So he can directly see the number, but he doesn't know what that number mean. Okay, so that is the problem here. The next problem is no bulk updates. If the boss wants to change the settings for 100 greenhouses, they have to send 100 separate messages with 100 separate sticky notes. There is no way to sync them all at once. This is the major problem in SNMP. So SNMP protocol, this is a protocol that doesn't work on bulk. It has to send separate messages for separate receivers. Okay, this is the main problem here. So we'll move on to the next slide. The next slide is talking about why SNMP isn't enough anymore. SNMP has some old school problems in which I have explained two problems in the previous slide. So there are some more problems in SNMP. That is why we don't use SNMP anymore. So those problems are, the first problem is no memory, that is stateless. Every time the manager asks a question, he has to reintroduce himself. The worker doesn't remember the last conversation because it is stateless. It doesn't store any history. It doesn't remember anything a minute ago. Anything happens which a minute ago, okay? So he doesn't have any memory. So that is the main problem here. The next one is unreliable delivery. It uses UDP. It's like sending a letter with no tracking number. You hope it gets there, but there's no message received notification. So it is like a one-way communication. So we can send a message, but we don't receive any notification back. So this is the main problem. The next problem is hard to change. Most of those papers in the filing cabinet are read-only. You can see the temperature, but you can't use SNMP to actually change the temperature. Okay, so we can only see the content there in the cabinet. So we don't have any authorization or authentication to change the temperature or whatever. Okay. The next problem is hard to change. Most of those papers in the filing cabinet are read-only. You can see the temperature, but you can't use SNMP to actually change the temperature. Okay, so we can only see the content there in the cabinet. So we don't have any authorization or authentication to change the temperature or whatever. Okay, so the next problem is confusing data. It is hard to tell the difference between a setting and status. A setting can be I want it to be in 25 degrees Celsius. A status is currently 30 degrees Celsius. So it's the difference between the status and the setting may be confusing at anywhere at any time. Okay. So these are the problems occurring in SNMP. That is why we don't use anymore. Okay, I hope you understand. We'll move on to the next slide.